Okay.
Okay.
Hello again from me. Um, let's just go right to uh, what we have prepared. So I will share my screen. Yeah, I hope you can see the course webpage. And so the practicals today deal with walls, obviously. Um, and as Dan said, we'll play with something here, and then some of it will be the homework assignment. But the first thing, let's just play with walls because it's fun and it's useful and it's interesting. So there is a link to walls. I will just show briefly what you can do with it, and then I will give you some time to try it yourself because I don't know if how easy or hard it is for you to watch what I do and do something yourself. If you have only one screen, then probably it's hard. Um, so you've heard what walls is. So let's just look at it. So if you go into the features, so you see all the kinds of features and the number of languages for which the feature is filled in. So for example, Dan suggested looking at cases. So, for example, the number of cases is filled in for 261 languages, so that's pretty good. So if you look at the number of cases, so you see the available values, which is going to from 0 to 10 or more. And you see the numbers of languages with these number of cases, and you see their distribution across the map. And you can just zoom in on some part that you're interested in, as Dan said. So, for example, for Czech and Slovak, nothing is filled in. So uh, that's how it is. And you also get a listing of the languages. So, for example, uh, we are probably interested in these fun languages which have 10 or more cases. So you can see the list of languages for which this is recorded. Um, and if we're interested in some of the languages, then we can just click the language and we see some information about the language. So its name and where it is spoken. There is this list of sources from which the information is compiled. And also for each of the value, you have the source. Well, not for each of it. Sometimes it's missing. So you can figure out what the features of the language are. And yeah, this doesn't say much. Yeah, and you can go back to the feature. So coding of nominal plurality, uh, which probably you can guess is okay. So if a noun is in plural, so how do you mark it if there is a prefix or suffix or something else? And if you're not sure what the feature means, so there is usually a link to uh, some explanation where it has some very often it has some fun examples from very weird languages, so it's nice to look at anyway. And there is some explanation about what they mean by that, and some detail about what the values mean. So sometimes it's not clear how to do this. So for example, if there is just a prevalence of usually using this way, but sometimes using some other way. So they often list like, okay, so how did they make the decision how to classify the things? Um, so it's not just the data, but there is also pretty extensive documentation for that, and it's quite interactive. So it's actually fun to use. And there is also another view where you look at the languages, and so you can filter out the languages that you're interested in. So for example, if you're interested in Slavic languages. So you can get a nice map and listing of languages that are covered by WALS and are considered Slavic. And yeah, if you click one of the languages, so then again you get some information about the language. Um, uh, there are various ways to filter the languages, and an interesting thing is that you can also look for the countries in which the language is spoken. So, for example, if I look for Poland, so well, I should have asked before, like, how many languages do you think people speak in Poland? So the WALS answer is five. Well, I don't know whether that's reasonable or not. And I know we do have a person from Poland, so I don't know, Tomasz, if you think that this is a reasonable listing of Polish languages.
Uh, yeah, like Kashubin, for sure, Polish. I don't know the third language,
Uh,
and I think there are not many Yiddish speakers left in Poland, but maybe a few of them.
hmm.
So maybe it's also a bit accurate.
Okay, thanks for the feedback. So uh,
Yeah,
that's
I know there's also. I think the ethnologue also has Silesian as another language, but
uh-huh.
it's not involved.
Yeah. So
So there
again,
could
yeah,
be
it's
another language here.
yeah, yeah.
But
So
it depends how
Silesian.
you define it.
Hmm. So we can look whether it's just not under. No, it's just not here. So they probably consider it just a
Hmm.
dialect, and well, it's
I think it's ethnologue, but it's
yeah,
not in WALS. So
yeah. It's quite possible. Yeah, there are even some weird things in ethnologue that people wouldn't agree on today, I think. For example, there is still Serbian Croatian just as one language. So for Serbia and Croatia and Bosnia, everything. So I don't think today people would agree on that being a one language. Well, linguistically that's one thing, but politically, like, definitely not. Uh, so again, like, definition of what's a language is kind of difficult, as Dan said.
And
Okay.
WALS only covers about 2,000 languages
Yeah.
anyway. So
Yeah. So actually, that's the even the password for our Zoom. So if you join our Zoom and ask a password, so I set the password to the number of languages in WALS. Uh, okay. So yeah, you said you don't know Slovensian. So yeah. Okay. So it seems to be probably a dialect of Kashubian because it has Kashubian as an alternative name.
mm.
Uh, okay. So that's weird. Well, I don't know anything about it anyway, and we don't learn much about it here. Just three features, and but there is some links to literature. So if anyone is interested, then sure, there is a way to learn about it. And well, we have to also think about walls being created over the years, and you can see a lot of the references are quite old. So it might not reflect the current state of things. Well, or it does not reflect the current state of things often. Yeah, so I'll stop my sharing for a while so that I can give you some space to try this yourself. So try to open walls as well and try to uh, click through it to see what's there. Um, so if you have your own interests, then feel free to look for anything you're interested in. If not, then you can, for example, look for how the languages, what kind of word for T the languages have, which is fun. It's one of the last features, I think. And yeah, just feel free to, I can just, so I'll share my screen again so that we can look how this works. So for example, if you just know that you want some word order feature, uh, then you can just look for the word order features available. And well, order as subject, object, verb is the first one. which is listed, and it is listed for a large number of languages, like half of the languages. And yeah, you'll get this kind of information. Now, people often talk about properties of word order being interlinked. So um, so you can see also that the dominant word orders are SOV and SVO. Well, in the languages covered by WALS. So this doesn't this by no means this means that, like, I don't know, most of the people in the world have SOV order. That's something completely different. So we talk about number of languages here. Um, Often people talk about this being interlinked with orders of other things. So, for example, the whether the language uses prepositions or postpositions. So whether a preposition or adposition is before the noun or after the noun. And in WALS, you can easily combine a search. So I will just add another criterion here. So when I start typing order, it offers other things that have order. So for example, order of adposition and noun phrase. And now it combines these two criteria. And so we have a legend here, and we can see that with, so first there are prepositions. So we can see with prepositions, it's usually SVO. This is for 300 languages. With postpositions, it's usually SOV, 374 languages. So you can see that, yeah, there is some correlation here. So it's not a rule. It's not always this way. Well, there are some gaps with zero languages in the category, but again, this might be just a gap in WALS. So it's not a good idea to say, okay, in WALS it says this thing doesn't exist, so it means it doesn't exist. Well, maybe it doesn't exist, but maybe it does. Uh, so again, prepositions, postpositions, they're quite well balanced, but yeah, and uh, okay, I don't know how this feature works. Yeah. So some features are already combined. Relationship within the order of object and verb and the order of adjective and noun. So that's again something people like to look at. So whether adjectives are before nouns or after nouns. And again, well, there seems to be some preference for adjectives being in post position in verb object languages. It's also useful to see that uh, it's often different than um, what the classical Indo-European languages have, because, well, the Indo-European languages are something we know very well, but very often the majority of languages are different. Okay, so I'll stop sharing again so that you can still try to find something in WALS. So that was WALS for clicking. And it's very useful when you just want to find out some information about some language, or when you're studying a specific feature, or when you want to see a nice map of how something is distributed. And yeah, so we warned you, like, don't trust it 100%, but well, it's often the easiest source to use. So it has its value, definitely. Um, so as we as also said, so this course is more computational than linguistic. So what we are interested in is actually using the information in WALS more programmatically. So I'll share my screen again. Um, so well, even on WALS, you can download WALS offline. And just what we found is that the format is not optimal. So here you can download a conversion, which I did, which is a bit cleaned a bit, not very much, but so even on WALS, somewhere you can get download. Yeah. So it's just possible to download it officially. So we just have our own copy, which I will try to show. So the original CSV, so the values are separated by commas, but sometimes there are also commas inside the values. So then these are put into quotes, and it's well, unpleasant to work with. So we converted to TSV where they're separated by tab signs. And we replaced tab signs inside the feature values because some feature values, for some reason, do include a tab sign inside. Uh, so anyway, I will just download this file, hopefully. Yes, and so this is was downloaded as one text file, and we can see that uh, the first line. This is just the first line. What we see here are the column names. So the first 10, I think, are these meta information. So the codes of the language, the name, the GPS position of the language, genus, family, macro area, and codes of countries where the language is spoken. And then there are all these, I forgot how many, like 200 features of the languages. Then, so for each language, some of the information is filled in, some of it is not filled in. Uh, and that's the format. So uh, like if we are interested in the language names, I think it's the sixth column, is it? No, these are the GPS coordinates. So yeah, so I hope you all have some experience with Linux or some other way to use it. Even if not, well, feel free to use just any programming language that you know to work with the file. So, well, just load it in any programming language and try to work with it. I'll use the Linux terminal here. So obviously it's easy to cut, for example, the names of the languages, and uh, then, well, whatever you want to do, we can look for all the varieties of German, and uh, obviously not all of these are spoken in Germany. So I think the 10th column is the country codes. Yeah. So for example, if I'm interested in the varieties of German and the country codes where this is spoken, so that's easy to get. And um, or we could look at all the Germanic languages. So I would need, I think, yeah. So this would be if I just type Germanic, that's what I wanted to look for. So that's all the Germanic languages. Um, and yeah, we could look for all the countries where Germanic languages are spoken. So now I cut the countries, and I could, I don't know, uh, split it so that there is one country per line, and so we could see how many Germanic languages are spoken in these countries. So in this case, we have 12 Germanic languages just for Germany, and then some other for other countries. Um, so I hope you can now see why this is often more powerful than just clicking online. Uh, of course, you have to be well, careful about the format. You have to be careful about well, the gaps in it. So if we do the same for Slavic languages, yeah. So interestingly, if we look for the number of Slavic languages spoken in the countries, so the country which has the highest number of Slavic languages spoken in it is Germany, uh, which kind of is fun. But well, we've seen it before when we were clicking on it. That yeah, uh, there is. I think there is Serbian in three varieties. So Serbian as itself, and then split into upper and lower, and then there is Polabian as another Slavic language in Germany. Uh, so well, it's fun. Um, or I think there's a lot of Arabic languages, uh, which again makes sense. Um, so interestingly, for example, for Arabic, there is no like uh, standard Arabic in any way. So, or I think there is, yeah, Arabic as modern standard. Sorry, so it is there, just in listed in this weird way. But I think interestingly, it's not the Arabic for which most features are filled in. So if we look at it, so actually for Egyptian Arabic, it seems this is the like this is like the Arabic for WALS. So this is where most features are filled in. And for the other varieties, usually there is just a few features. For Moroccan, there is more. But for example, for modern standard Arabic, there is just a few. There is a lot of countries where it is spoken. That's nice, but not a lot of features here. So uh, so if you're, for example, interested in the features of Arabic, so you might guess, okay, so out of these, like I'm looking for modern standard Arabic maybe, but well, not really. In this case, Egyptian gives you the most information. So uh, just, yeah, it's like be careful and really look into the data, what is there and what isn't there. You can basically never uh, assume anything about the data in WALS because it may be very, very varied. And we can try something that we already looked at. So for example, we looked at some of the word orders and it doesn't work now. Okay, so maybe let's look at order of subject and verb again. So it's 82A. So I would think when it's 82, so there is 10 extra columns, so it should be column 92. But let's see. Yeah. So for the A features, there shouldn't be any gaps at the beginning. So if I look for feature 82, I find it at position 92. And for example, of order of subject on verb. Okay, so that's something different than we did before. We did subject verb object, but okay, let's look at this one. Uh, and you can easily get the distribution from that. So okay, so usually it's subject verb, but sometimes it's verb subject. And yeah, I'm grabbing from everything, so I also get the column name, but you also see there's just a lot of gaps even in such a basic feature, uh, which well is unpleasant. And we could even try the combination. So 81A is actually the one we looked before at. Yeah, so these SOV, VSO, and we could now combine them with the order of the prepositions or postposition, which is 85A is the order of the adposition and noun phrase. So 85, that means it will be column 95. And what did I do wrong? Sure. Okay. So maybe let's just see the most frequent ones at the top. So so just some Linux some bash training. So I cut the two columns from the file. I sorted. I count the unique values, how often they appear, and then I sort it numerically from the most frequent. So most frequent is that there is no information on either the order of subject, object, verb, and of prepositions or both positions. But then we can see these patterns that we talked about. That there is, you can just see the high correlation here of the two values. Then, well, a lot of gaps. So I don't know what it actually does online when you look for the things where there are gaps for some of the values, but well, here you can do whatever you feel like. Um, yeah, and then the other combinations. So again, I'll give you now some time to try this yourself if you do have the capability to load the file quickly somewhere and use it. Um, and yeah, so again, either just look for anything you like, or if there is nothing you're particularly interested in, then let's see, you can uh, look for example, the number of cases in the languages and try to see whether they seem to somehow correlate with the word order, which actually I haven't tried, but it's easy to figure out. And if there are some problems, so then again, that's a good time to ask now. So that leaves us the last 15 minutes. So I'll tell you what you should do as homework assignment, and then at the end I will just spend some time with some well, general information about, well, how to submit homework assignments and blah blah blah. Well, on the web page, it tells you what the homework assignment is. And the idea is actually simple and useful. It's to try to measure how similar two languages are. So, for example, we could take Czech and Polish, and we could look at what WALS has to say about these two languages. And the idea is that if a lot of the features have, well, the same value, then probably it tells us that these languages are very similar. It's, of course, biased in many ways, but it's something that has been shown repeatedly that you can use, especially if the similarity is high. Then it usually means that these languages actually are similar languages. If the similarity is just low, then it tends to be quite random because, well, most of the languages will have some low similarity. If one of the languages just has only one feature filled in, then obviously we don't learn much. But so your task, so it will be a programming task, but quite a simple one, I would say, is to, well, create a script that takes in two codes of languages, probably WALS codes, because, well, all WALS languages have a WALS code filled in, and it computes, uh, or, well, I can see that I'm saying a different thing than what's written here. So uh, the main thing is to program some way of comparing two languages, how similar they are. And we're not explicitly saying how to do that, so that you try to do something, but basically, well, probably you count 1 point if they match in some of the values and 0 points if they don't match. And very often there will be gaps, so you have to decide what to do with the gaps, if you just ignore them or if you say, well, it's like half matching or whatever. If you like to find out more about it, there is a link to a paper that talks about that, but it's just fine if you just implement something yourself. And then there are 3 tasks which you should apply your code to. So the first task would be you put in a WALS code of one language, and you find the most similar languages, like you print like 10 languages which have the highest similarity with the language. And um, Well, the interesting question is whether these are the languages that you would expect or not. And even if you want to dig more into the data, then to try to identify why the result is maybe not as expected, if it is not what you expected. So you can just guess, okay, so each of you knows at least one language. So you would put in Czech maybe, and you would look at the list of languages which are most similar to Czech, and then try to see, okay, so does it make sense or not? And then there are two additional tasks which just extended a bit. So it would be interesting to see. Well, it's kind of a long-going debate of Slavic linguists, like what is the most typical Slavic language. So the Slavic language which is most the closest to all the other languages. So like kind of, I don't know, a very average Slavic language or whatever. So if you have your way of measuring the distance of languages, then you can measure the distances of all pairs of Slavic languages, and then try to say what is the language which is the closest to all other languages. And also the task 3 is kind of the opposite. So try to find which is the weirdest language in WALS, so that it is very different from all the other languages. And here you really have to think about what to do with the gaps. Like if there is a language for which just one value is filled in, then this is not really weird. That's pretty common. So probably you want to look only at some languages for which some values are filled in. Um, so this will be a bit of programming, and actually you will submit the code that you coded, but we're more than the code, we're interested in what you find out. So for all of the homework assignments, the most important part is to write, well, a report about what you did, what you found out. So in this case, you would write down, well, kind of the formula, or how you decided to compute the language similarity, and then, well, what you tried putting in and what you got out, and whether you find it reasonable or not. Um, and well, I didn't say it, but this task itself is not just a nonsense task, but it's something we will actually build on in other tasks, because as Dan explained, we often want to process languages for which there is not enough resources. Like if we would like to work with uh, Kashubian maybe, so we probably wouldn't have many resources for that language. So we need to find out which languages are similar to it, so that we can use resources for other languages. And well, for Kashubian, it would be hard because we had just one feature filled in. So we would just have to guess, well, it's in Poland, so let's use Polish as the closest language. But for other languages, there is a lot of features filled in. So there we can do some reasonable measurements. And this is something we will actually try to do in some of the further tasks that I will ask you to um, reuse basically your code for measuring language distances, so that you can see which language to use when you want to process some other language, what makes sense. So that's about the task. Uh, there is an alternative is basically to do what Dan talked about, was the shared task last year. So you can try to, well, guess the missing values in WALS. Um, so this is definitely harder, and it's a lot of work to do it well. But at least trying something like maybe finding the closest language and then copying the values from the closest language, or finding three closest languages and then uh, doing some voting. But as Dan said, the more uh, the how to say, the usually you get better results when you actually look for those links or correlations of the feature values. So this is what we looked at a bit. So if the language is SVO, then probably it has what prepositions. I think. So it's more the clever way is to look for these kind of correlations to maybe estimate some probabilities of these links and then use that to guess the values. And as you can see, so the tasks are a bit vague, and actually, well, this is not an obligatory course. This is just basically a voluntary course for all of you. So this means we are happy to give you more space in more freedom in deciding what you really want to do. So uh, for this assignment, well, if you think up something else which you would like to use WALS for and it makes sense to you, then it's probably fine with us. So if you decide that these tasks are boring for you and you would like to do something else, you would like to extract something else from WALS or predict something for WALS, then well, feel free to do so. If you're unsure whether it's a good idea, then just drop us an email. Uh, and this is kind of true for all the tasks. So when it inspires you to do something else, then we're very happy. And I think when you design the task yourself, then it's probably more interesting for you, or especially if in your studies or in your research something makes a lot of sense for you to do, then just feel free to do it. We'll be happy. And once more, I'll share the screen just to show you the list of rules and everything. Um, uh, so um, so well, it's listed here. So just let's go over it a bit. So as I said, well, use any programming language you like. I can zoom in a bit. Uh, so right now I was using Bash. Mostly I will be using Python in the course, and I will at least sometimes I will also have some sample Python code that you can reuse for your assignment. So if you decide to use Python, then it will be easier for you. Um, but you can use any other language that you like. And we will ask you to submit, well, the source code, so whatever you programmed, and a short report, as I said. And again, it's up to what you did. So if you just did something very basic, so maybe the whole report will just be like 5 sentences saying, I did it this way, I found this thing, and that's fine. In many cases, it makes sense to include some, well, outputs or results into the report. So here, it would make a lot of sense to say, okay, so I did it this way, and then I put in this language, and this is what I got out, and some interpretation of the results. So I think the results are good, are bad for this reason. If I needed to have the results better, then I would do this thing. So we want to see if you, well, got to understand what you did a bit. So if the assignment is really interesting for you, you do a lot on it, so then, well, the report can be pretty long. So we've had students sometimes submit like 5 pages in PDF with some figures and tables. So, well, if you feel like this is what you want to do, if you, well, just do a lot of work that you want to talk about, then yeah, feel free to do that. We are happy, and you will get well, more points for that. If, well, you just do a basic thing and there is not much to say about it, so then just like 5 sentences in a txt file are also fine. An important thing is that the report is actually the important part. So the code, well, you have to do the code anyway because you have to solve the task somehow, but we will be looking at the reports definitely, and maybe we will look at the code if it seems weird or if we want to see how you solved it. But the code is kind of for you and the report is for us. Um, and well, technically, please create a Git repository somewhere and submit the code using a Git repository. So maybe the faculty GitLab or wherever you like, and give access at least to me and ideally to Dan as well. And just send me a link to the repository so that I can check it. And With each assignment, there will be a deadline, usually Sunday midnight in 1.5 weeks. So you get what, 9 days or something like that to do the assignment. So by that time, the assignment should be there, and I will check out the repository and see what's there and give you some points. And the default is that you get 3 points if the solution is okay. If it's bad or if you didn't really solve anything, so then you get less points. If it's good, if it's extensive, or if it's clever, or if the analysis is detailed, then I can give you more points, like 4 or 5 points. And at the end of the term, you should look for having at least so the average number of points you get should be at least 3 if you want to get a grade 1. So if you get less, then well, you get a lower grade. And this also kind of means that you don't have to submit all the assignments. But if you're missing too many assignments, then maybe this will not be enough to pass the course. Um, and as I said, with this assignment, but what is true for all the assignments, well, feel free to go as deep as you like, or diverge from the assignment as much as you like, because a lot of what we are covering here is really operating at the research frontier. So some of it is really recent things or unsolved problems or whatever. So uh, if you get interested into some of the things that we will be doing here, so there is a chance to do something cool and publish a paper about it, which has happened already twice, I think, in the course. Yeah, so we wanted to be open for you as possible, but that's just some encouragement. But it's not. It's optional. So if you don't feel very creative about it and you just want to learn the things we tell you and just want to well, complete the course, then it's definitely okay just to do what we tell you to do, and that will be fine. And also, I want to go to the home page. So there is again something I said, and there is a section which we edit. I did this like today or yesterday because we again had to solve some issues of students cheating on the courses by submitting other people's work as their work. So I just want to emphasize that this is not allowed. I think it's kind of clear, but as we're running into these problems time to time, then it seems we have to say it explicitly. So don't cheat. This basically means don't submit other people's work. Uh, don't if you write some code, so don't share it with anyone else. It should be your own work. On the other hand, it's allowed to discuss stuff together, and actually, it's a good idea. So if you want to discuss with your classmates, well, how they're progressing or if it works for them or whatever, then this is fine. The important thing is that what you then submit is your own work, not somebody else's work. And well, if you're not sure about something, then well, always feel free to ask. You can easily find our email addresses. Maybe they're listed here. Definitely, you can find them on our pages. So whenever you want to ask something, whenever you have a problem, or well, just anything you want to tell us or discuss with us, so feel free to drop an email, ideally to both of us, because then it's a higher chance that one of us will reply soon to what you want to know. Um so that's all from me. So now again, I'll stop the recording.